Is your mind open enough? Let's find out. Hi everybody, and welcome to another video, and welcome to another food for thought video, my dear friends. These have become my favorite kind of videos. A video in which I provide you with different points of view, various points of view, from which you can look at things, because it seems to me that if you look at something, anything, and art especially, creative output, if you only look at certain things from your own view of the world, as far as your own beliefs and your own ideas and your own opinions, and if you refuse to even consider a different point of view, I think that mars your ability to enjoy art fully, or at least to enjoy as many, works of art as possible. And now, please, do take into consideration the fact that this video is a video made by a little European fella providing you with, his own take on things. Quite obviously, your take might differ. It has happened with the latest couple of videos. I provided people with my take. For example, I don't enjoy modern television at all. It's boring, it's bland, it's really no fun to me. Like House of the Dragon, I just don't want to watch it. I know, like, the latest episode, people are saying it's great, there's like a great dragon fight. Yeah, pass. I mean, I've seen a lot of great battle scenes in films. One dragon fight that won't really move the needle for me. And many people took it personally. Like, oh my god, so what you're saying is that we're all stupid if we like it. No, I might have said that my standards haven't dropped enough for me to enjoy modern television. But I do not judge anybody. If they want to watch that show, feel free. We live in a free world, more or less. So, yeah, I mean, this video is going to be taken personally by some people, and I am ready for it. So, finally, I'm going to talk about authors, and that you don't really have to give a flying toss about what they say or what they think. If they write a good book that you love, it makes no difference what they believe in politically, socio-politically, religiously, so on and so forth. I have prepared, just out of my mind, out of whim, I just downloaded pictures of some of my favorite authors, and then in the end some memorable mentions of two philosophers and authors that I read works of, and I agree with a lot of their ideas and a lot of what they have said and written, just because they used common sense. No matter, I mean, what they believed in and or how they are perceived by humans, how they presented, or how they have been presenting themselves. We'll get there. Tolkien, obviously, I mean, an old school gentleman from England, born in South Africa, but when he was a little boy, moved back to England, a gentleman, a religious man, a philologist, a linguist, an Oxford professor, a genius, a writer, a poet, a man who knew bazillion languages, both fluently and had a working knowledge of, a man who has contributed, or did contribute, to the revival of the old Germanic alliterative verse in English literature, a Renaissance man, a man who is a god to many people who love fantasy literature, and definitely a tremendous inspiration to me in both my creative output and my academic work in the past. But that is the constant, that is the evergreen, that is the obvious. Everybody knows that if you've been following my channel. We've got Michael Moorcock here. He couldn't be different from Tolkien. Absolutely not. A man who has very different political views, who has very different social views and ideas and opinions, who has very different religious views, and altogether a very different person. Many of my followers on social media, they wouldn't approach the works of Michael Moorcock if they knew that he was a very, very strongly liberal person, a feminist, self-proclaimed, a man who is anti-imperialism, or against imperialism. His work. I mean, read Elric of Melniboné. Elric of Melniboné is anti-imperialistic, like very much, extremely. And if you don't only read his fantasy work, if you read his other novels, those are very political works of art. I haven't read as much of his non-fantasy output, but I don't have to if I don't want to, right? But that is something I have to catch up with. But as far as his fantasy, as far as his Elric of Melniboné saga, that's like really genuinely and literally one of the best fantasy written in the history of mankind. And whatever the allegory is there, it doesn't change the fact that it is brilliantly and masterfully written fantasy with well-drawn, well-thought-out, well-written characters, well-written stories, well-written plots. It is truly an icon and a legend of fantasy literature of the 20th century. Well, of course, Robert E. Howard, one of the founding fathers of the modern fantasy genre, along with Tolkien, a man who is, I would say, one of the fathers, mainly the grandmaster of sword and sorcery. And not only the creator of Conan the Barbarian, but look into his work, also a very prolific man. His fate was very tragic at the time. A man from the American South. Once again, couldn't be more different from the two previous authors. A man who wrote Sword and Sorcery so well. A man who wrote Conan the Barbarian, who is my favorite by him, so well that I refuse my own choice, my own opinion, mind you. I refuse to read Conan the Barbarian stories written by anybody else but Robert E. Howard. And there have been many authors writing about Conan the Barbarian, and I'm sure that in the comments down below you will provide me with a list of other authors, other than Robert E. Howard, who wrote very good Conan stories. Yet, no, thank you very much. It is as if somebody wrote a very good, tremendous, masterfully written story from Middle-earth. No, thank you. No. Tolkien wrote about Middle-earth. And that's it. Robert E. Howard wrote Conan the Barbarian. Well, that's it. It's the same thing with Michael Moorcock. He wrote Elric of Melniboné, and even has published a new novel very recently. I don't want to read Elric by anybody else but Michael Moorcock. Thank you. People have reminded me that Neil Gaiman wrote a short story about Elric. How did that end up? He completely twisted it. And the character, I have not read it, fortunately, because I have always refused to read Elric of Melniboné written by anybody else but Michael Moorcock. Let us move on to Terry Pratchett, one of my absolute favorite fantasy authors. Very much different. Religiously, from Tolkien. As far as his writing style, extremely different from all those three previously mentioned men. A man, the only author in the history of literature who has been able to make me laugh out loud when reading a book. I can laugh at a film, I can laugh at a joke, I can laugh at whatever. At a YouTube video. When I read a book, I never laugh out loud. I smile, I chuckle, I frown, I cry, but I have never ever whatsoever laughed out loud. I have never had a fit of laughter when reading a book other than Terry Pratchett's Discworld series. That's how good of a comedic, funny, entertaining writer he was. We are getting to Tove Jansson, the creator of Moomins, who wrote novels, novellas, and comic strips about Moomins. Creatures that have become an icon to that extent that they are mostly known for their 1990s anime, which was actually made by the Japanese. An international phenomenon. A woman who was openly a lesbian. So, many of my followers on social media, once again, would hate her only for her sexual orientation and nothing else, which is very bad and very mean, very inappropriate. And if you do such a thing, you are a very bad person. I have read and reread her Moomin novels multiple times, each and every single one of them. I love Moomins, and they are absolutely one of my favorite things in the world. And I have loved them since I was about 3 years old. And now to the honorable mentions in the end. To show you how truly wide the scope of my reading can be. So if we verge away from narrative fantasy literature, if we venture into philosophy a little bit, I have read upon many a philosopher, and I will read many books and manuscripts from philosophers and religious people. I have read, or at least partially read, a lot of religious books, as far as uncountable number of mythology books and texts about mythology and history. A lot of my followers absolutely hate, despise, and damn Anton Sandor Lavey, the founder of the Church of Satan in the United States of America, which, if you read his Satanic Bible that I have read, I think 3 times, you will find out that it is actually a book of philosophy, which only adapts, his church adapted the imagery of, the biblical Satan, just for, basically, to be put simply, to go against religion. And he does not understand Satan as an anthropomorphic being, as somewhere there in hell with a pitchfork sitting on a throne, of fire, with a little goatee and saying, "Whoa, I am the devil." No, that's really not. It's he was a firm believer in magic, in forces of nature and forces of the universe, in the fact that we as human beings are able to use those, let's say, very simplistically, those powers in nature, and perceive them if we choose to. And we were able to do so in the past, before the age of extreme civilization, extreme industrialization, and so on and so forth. It's a very interesting, at times complex to understand for some people who are not open to other ideas, book to read. And I do recommend it even if you are a strongly religious person. Just open your mind, and you might find that not everything is the way you think it is. To close it all, let us mention a man who's still alive and thriving, Varg Vikernes, a musician, a philosopher, a writer, who has had an interesting history there in Norway, where he lived, and in other places as well. A firm believer of, the ways of our ancestors. A man who strongly believes in the way that it is possible to live the way our ancestors did in the past, our European ancestors. A strong believer in the fact that, it's very close to my own perception of life and history. It's all cyclical. It's all very nature-based. We do live in symbiosis with nature. As nature goes in cycles, like if you look, for example, outside your own window, you've got the seasons of the year are changing, everything is being born, and then it is being reborn again and again and again, like nature. Just think about this metaphor, nature dies every time in winter and is reborn in spring. So that's why, for example, the main iconography or the main symbols of Easter is like eggs, because that means, like new life. But it's, once again, a video like that would like take hours to make. I'm talking very simplistic terms, right? So reborn, rebirth, reincarnation, the ways of old, the ways of our ancestors, Europe for Europeans and things like that. I do strongly agree with these takes, although I have put them very simplistically. I'm sorry, Vark, if you're listening to this video. I only have a limited time. Just a couple of minutes to talk about, your viewpoint. Feel free to comment in the comments down below, should you be watching this video. But you know what I mean. Right, so this is going to be interesting. I'm looking forward to the comments. I'm actually looking forward to all the comments in the comment section down below. Right then, so let me know, let me know what you think. I love you all. Na Maria.